Yes.
All right. All right. Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to day 2 of our hackathon. Time is flying when you're having fun, especially when it is Halloween. So happy Halloween. Welcome back, as I already said. I'm sure that you worked long hours yesterday on your ideas. I saw a lot of technical questions on the chat. So I'm super excited today to see what comes out. Let me slowly walk you through the agenda so that you know where we're up to today. After the welcome session, which is currently right now, I would like to hand over to two of my colleagues, Jara and Elizabeth, who have a design thinking and how to pitch workshop prepared for you, probably 45 minutes. And what they show and what you learn here, these tricks and tips you can for sure will help you in your presentation later today. Around 10 until 12, the coaches are available again, the same procedure as we had yesterday. So they're happy to help you, to answer your questions. They can get technical support so that we have the whole morning to work on that. Then we have a super fun part at 12 where we have a yoga session. Please join all just to get our bodies ready as well. There is a short slot again for coaching time. And then you can start all working again on your projects, on your presentations for this evening. Please note and please submit your presentations 10 minutes to 7. And you can find the link here on the page so that we can already have a look at that. And then at 7, the pitching can start. Each team will have 5 minutes to present their presentation. There are 5 minutes for Q&A, and then the next team is there as well. The exact times for the teams you will find on Discord. I'm happy to share them again so that you know when your time is there. Let me go to the bottom of the page again, just to make sure that everybody understands the judging criteria, right? So again, we will take a look at usefulness. We will take a look at creativity. There's a technical complexity in your project. Hopefully, we take a look at the overall quality and, of course, the way you present your product. And let me talk about the prices as well, because if it's judging time, it's pricing time as well. So we have some really state-of-the-art power banks for the first winners. We have wireless chargers for your phone as a second prize. The top 3 teams get some free publicity from Electronic Neo. And as I said, there is a prize for everybody. I will not lift this secret until this evening. Sorry for that, but everybody is a winner at the end of the day. So that's around 7. And then we need a little break because the judges need to discuss which idea they think is the best. And then around 8, we will come back with an award ceremony and a closing of today. And I think then it's time to have some drinks, to have some fun, because then we really deserve that after these two exciting days. So that was a lot of talking. I'm super happy to hand over to my 2 colleagues here, Jara from TI and Elizabeth, who prepped a workshop on design thinking and how to pitch your idea. Elizabeth, Jara, are you ready?
Yes, good morning, everyone.
Yes, good morning. So I will share my presentation. All right. Can you see the screen?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. All right. So welcome, everybody. I hope you had a fun time hacking last night. And today, my colleague Jara Zet and myself will be giving a workshop on design thinking and how to pitch. So a little bit about me. I'm Elizabeth, and I work in corporate communications at Texas Instruments. And I'm going to let you in on a little secret today. There's one skill that I've been able to hone over years that is the key ingredient to my success: storytelling. In my role at TI, telling compelling stories allows me to connect and engage with employees across over 20 countries in Europe. It enables me to think creatively and ask what-if questions, which has also made me a natural innovator. And since I really believe in happy endings, no idea is impossible to me. And I've really made it my personal mission to empower every employee and every person to be innovative. And as a result, together with my colleague Jarazette here today, I co-founded an internal grassroots innovation initiative at Texas Instruments in EMEA, which has allowed me to host several innovation events from hackathons like today to workshops and speaker series. So today I'll be sharing some best practices that I've regularly used in my role to help you nail your pitch later tonight using storytelling practices.
So, good morning, everyone. My name is Jarazette, and I want to invite you today to imagine how would the world would look like if everyone was able to develop their full potential to innovate. This has been my quest for the past decade to understand innovation mindsets and processes and help and empower individuals and organizations to innovate. This quest has also allowed me to reshape and enrich my role at TI. And as Elizabeth mentioned, I had the opportunity to be one of the founding members of the grassroots initiative, the innovation initiative. Now more than ever, we need innovators. And I firmly believe that everyone has a part to play in shaping a more purposeful future. So my goal for this session today is to share with you some of my learnings, as well as giving you practical tools that you can use to find new ways to connect the dots and hopefully motivate you to go out there and use your potential to solve challenges. So this is, without further ado, we start on the design thinking workshop. And to start the session, I want to ask you a question. What is creative thinking? Now that we're in a hackathon, we're always compelled or feel like we have to do some creative thinking. Well, I think this phrase encapsulates that very well, the answer very well, as there is not physical thing such as creative walking, neither creative thinking. Creation is simply the place where things lead us. To create, we must think. This is a phrase from one of my favorite books, How to Fly a Horse. And I really recommend you this book if you want to learn more about creation and innovation. What I like about this phrase is that takes away the weight from us to kind of like come up with this outside of the box thinking questions, and also demystify a bit the thought that creativity is something that you're born with or not. But actually, creativity is a process of thinking, and it's a skill like painting or innovator that the more you train it, the better you become at it. So today, let's train a bit our thinking, and for that, I have a warm-up exercise for you. So this is a thinking puzzle, and I want you to write in the chat what is the answer. A man pushed his car. He stopped to reach the hotel. At which that point he knew he was bankrupt. Why? So I want to invite you to write in the chat, what do you think he figured out that? And I give you some seconds. Any answers? Okay, so we have to wait a little bit because there is a delay. So we'll wait a bit.
There is one
Mm-hmm.
here. So he tries to pay the hotel.
Okay.
And there's another one says Monopoly the game. Monopoly the game.
Perfect. Yes. So actually, it's true. I hope, and that's actually why, because he was playing Monopoly. This exercise, I have been doing it for a long time, and the majority of people, when they ask why they was bankrupt, they always think about real money. They always think about a physical car and a hotel. So why is that? That is because our brain is wired for efficiency. That's how we have been surviving as human, right? So when we are facing a challenge, the first thing that our brain does is give us an answer that is something that we are used to, familiar with. That's a good thing, and it's efficient, but the problem is that when you're trying to zoom out and see the challenges in a new perspective or come up with new ideas, this is difficult because you are always coming up with the answers of something familiar or something that you have experienced or lived. So how can you zoom out and really think about, what we just experienced, Monopoly, instead of a physical car? And the answer is just take time to pause, think of different ways that you can, that a car can be, that money can be, that a hotel could be. So I just want you to keep that thought during this presentation. And now I want to tell you what's design thinking. Design has been with us since forever. It's in the things we use, in the buildings we live, but the difference here is that design thinking is a human-centered approach. It's an approach that helps you understand the people that you're designing for and how their design is making a difference in their lives. It's a process of deep empathy, observation, and learning by doing. And I really like this quote from the creator of the I Love New York logo, which it says, "We are always looking, but we never really see. It is the act of attention that allows you to grasp really something to become fully aware, fully conscious of it." So I want you also to keep that in mind, that throughout this session and throughout this day, we don't only look, but we are trying to observe and see what that observation take us. Yeah. Perfect. So what's design thinking? I'm sure maybe some of you have heard about it already, but it's an approach that is trying to help you move from a challenge space to a solution space in 5 steps. And the first 2 steps are based on understanding the problem. So the first step is to emphasize. As I said, it's a human-centered approach. So you're trying to empathize with the people whom are you trying to solve the problem. The second step is to define what is the problem or the challenge that they're having. And after that, you move into the explore phase, which is the ideation phase, which are the ideas that will help you solve that challenge or give you some solutions to that challenge. And the last phase is to implement, where you move to the solution space, where you're trying to prototype, answer the question, how am I going to solve this challenge? And also test, what does people think about my prototype? Is this really solving their needs? Or is something that probably is not addressing their challenge in the way they expect it to be addressed? Can you click, Elizabeth, please? This might seem like a bit of a linear process, but actually it's a circular process. And what I say is because when you're on the testing, you realize that the solution that you prototype is not really what people is aiming for. So in that case, you will have to go back to the emphasize phase and do the process again. Or maybe you go to the ideation phase. So what I said is a process of learning and learning by doing. And the beauty here is that when we are always facing challenges, we always think about this outside of the box. We have to have this outside of the box thinking, but actually in design thinking, you use both the analytical thinking when you're converging, when you're trying to making choices, when you're trying to analyze what's happening and what's the problem. And you use the divergent thinking when you're trying to create choices, kind of like diverge into more ideas and what could be the solutions. So the first step is empathize. And I'm sure many of you have heard about, empathy is putting yourself in someone else's shoes. But actually it's very true. And for that, there is a formula. Like when you're trying to empathize, you're trying to see the world as the other person sees it, like feel what they feel. There's a formula from a book called Game Storming, which is Hoodoo. And you're trying to understand who is the person and what are they trying to achieve. And for that, there are two things that you can do to empathize. If you can click a little bit. The first one is interviews, and the second one is immersion. And as I mentioned, in both of them, and I mean, you are trying to feel what they feel, think what they think, and see what they see. The immersion phase is when you are trying to immerse yourself into the life of someone else. So kind of like putting yourself in those shoes, and what would it be a day in the life of the person that is having that challenge. Interviews, we're always, we're familiar with this. It's just when you interview that person. So for the empathize phase, there is a good technique that you can use. It's a canvas, and it's the empathy canvas. And yeah. And here, what you're trying to do is observe, have some insights, and then write them down. And then, as I said, you're trying to write and observe everything that they think and feel, they hear and see, they say and do, and what are their pains and what are their gains, what makes the user happy, and what is the frustrations that they're experiencing. After you have gathered that information, the second step is to define. And to define, I want to do also a quick exercise, and I want to ask you, what does this girl needs? And again, please write it in the chat if possible. I know there's some delay. Do we have any answers? It seems like there's no answers. But I'll just tell you what is the experience with these. She needs to turn around, okay, to see the clock. What else?
She threw her ball in the air as well.
She threw her ball in the air. Okay, perfect. So when I do this exercise as well, what the majority or the main answer that I get is that she needs a chair, she needs a ladder, she needs to kind of like something to help her reach the clock. The problem with that, when we frame when we're trying to define what the user needs as a noun, is that we constrain the solution, because we're already giving her the answer of what she needs is a ladder, right? So the first thing when you're defining a problem is do not use nouns, use verbs. So what the girl actually needs is to reach. Now we need to understand why does she has to reach, right? And also when you're trying to define challenges, don't put solutions, but put opportunities. What are the things that are opportunities to solve that challenge? And this is a good exercise, because what we think is that the girl wants to reach, but the problem is we don't know why she wants to reach the clock. So there is a very good exercise called the 5 whys. If you're familiar with lean manufacturing, or you will know about this, but it was built by Toyota. And the thing here is that this exercise is a root cause effect. So what you're trying to do with asking 5 times whys is to go to the core, to the real cause of why is causing that challenge. So in this case, for example, the girl needs to reach, but why does she need to reach the clock? Oh, she needs to reach the clock because she wants to take it to her room. Why does she want to take the clock to her room? Oh, because she needs to measure the time. Why does she need to measure the time? Because she's doing her science assignment. So here you see that if you stay with your first interpretation of the problem, or your first thought about the problem, you will actually not solve the problem of this girl. You will actually just give her a chair or a ladder, or something to reach. But actually what she needs is to measure the time to be successful in her assignment. So by asking these whys, you really understand the problem. at its core. So we're trying to identify the needs, which is the reaching, and we're trying to identify the motivation, which is finish her assignment successfully. Now what happens, right? Like, how can we help the girl? And if we think about measuring the time, we always think about a device. But what would happen if you zoom out, as we learn, not stay with the obvious, but zoom out and ask, what if? What if the device that measures the time is not an actual device, but something else, right? So then you start thinking about, okay, how can I measure the time in different ways? And could be with the light of the sun, it could be throughout the length of a song. So it gives you a little bit more of opportunities to explore the space, the problem in a different and with different solutions. So for that, I have a canvas that you can use. This is a canvas that I developed myself after doing several design thinking workshops and working on the different design thinking projects. I couldn't find a tool that will help really summarize the insights that I was gathering and also help me understand the whys and frame the problem and zoom out of the problem. So I developed this canvas called Connecting the Dots, and I will give you an example of a project that I did about purposeful virtual collaboration. So the first thing you want to do is to understand what are the pain points of the people. And for that, if you can click, Elizabeth, please. What is the gap between the current state and the desired state, right? What are their pains? And I identify 4 types of pains. I'm going to walk you through just the example of one, which is an absence of agenda of clear goal is a pain for the people when they're doing virtual collaboration. The second thing that I did is explore why. And it's because they want to have a common goal. And why do they want to have a common goal? Because they want to understand the big picture. And why do they want to understand the big picture? Is because they want to see where they can contribute. And why do they want to know that they want to contribute? Because they want to contribute to the common goal to have a motivation. So actually the problem is not the agenda. The problem is how to keep up with the motivation. So in the third area, you define with how might we questions to convert, how can you convert the needs into opportunities? And you, as I mentioned, you not do it by solutions, but by verbs. Empower people to define a common goal. How might we empower people to define a common goal to keep the motivation, right? So you write your statements like that, and then you reframe. I want to zoom out of the challenge and think about something that is not work related. So what if the collaboration was happening? If you can click, Elizabeth. In a restaurant, right? If the virtual collaboration was happening in a restaurant, how might we empower people to define a common goal to keep the motivation? So this helps you zoom out and think of other alternatives. And this is a very good segue for the ideation process. Then in this as well, you're using both sides of your brain, which is the analytical and the creative one, if you would say it, when you're trying to make choices, and then when you zoom out to diverge and see what are the other opportunities that you might encounter. And a good problem definition is informative. It tells you really what people need and want. It's inspiring because it tells you to move you to do something, and it's memorable. So when you're crafting a problem definition, try it to be informative, inspiring, and memorable. And now we move to the third step, which is the ideation process. And I'm sure many of you are familiar with this step, with these rules, but the first rule is that they are not by ideas. So we have to defer judgment. And instead of saying, yeah, your idea is good, but we say your idea is good or is bad, and we can do this to make it better, or something like that. Challenge assumptions, as I mentioned, observe, challenge your assumptions as well. Capture everything, whatever people say, do, and everything you have to capture. And the important thing here is to listen with your eyes, right? How, try to understand what is happening and the things that are happening. See, it's also important to have some time with silent brainstorming, which you do individual brainstorming and then group brainstorming, and always use visuals. The third rule is to stay focused on the topic. Use the insights gathering in the previous step to really help you really come back to what the people need and ask how might we questions, And the rule number 4 is quantity over quality. Here is when you think with your hands. So whatever comes to your mind, you just write it down. Encourage what ideas and build on the ideas on other and one conversation at the time. So those are the rules for ideation. Now in prototype, what you're trying to do is not focus on the solution, but focusing on the learning. What can you learn from the things that you are prototyping? And what can you learn from the feedback that people is telling you? So you focus on the learning, not on the process. It's also important to be lean and flexible. Do not marry your first prototype. Do not marry your first idea. If you hear feedback, incorporate it and be flexible to change your prototype. Iterate often as needed. And of course, it's important to create a minimal viable product that gives the people the idea what is your solution. So with that, we move to the what are the types of prototypes that you could do. You could do a storyboard, a digital mock-up, a landing page where people can sign up. For you, maybe today, a demo, a presentation, some visual models, a video. So anything really that helps you convey the idea of your prototype or your solution. And finally, we move to the test, right? When we're working on the design thinking process, we're working on the area of desirability. Does the market want the idea? And to test that, it's important to see what people or understand what people says and what people do. So you want to test both, right? So when you're asking in an interview, what do you think about this solution? It's good, but sometimes people say something and they do something. So what you're trying to do is see if people would invest time, money, and resources on your idea. So you say, okay, you think it's good. Would you buy a subscription, for example? So that will give you a more accurate validation of really if your product or solution is desired. Feasibility, is it technically feasible, right? And this is a good example about YouTube, right? If YouTube have launched before the bandwidth of internet was high enough for video streaming, it would not have been a success, right? So the technical feasibility is very important for the adoption, to see if your product is feasible, but also for the adoption of your product or solution. Viability, is the idea profitable enough, right? In maybe not in the first stages, but in the long term, is there a market for it? And the adaptability, can the idea survive and adapt? You know, now we're facing, these uncertain times, right? So how can you adapt your idea if uncertain times happen? And with that, I'm on the end of the design thinking process, and I just want to leave you with one thought. I'm not a big fan of these think outside of the box, because actually, what is that box? And why do we have to think outside of the box, right? So for me, I would like you to think like there is no box, like there is no limit. It's just a white canvas where you can play and really use your ideas, your potential, to do something meaningful for you and for others.
Great. So now we'll move on to how to pitch. And I'm going to ask you a question. How long do you think it takes to make a first impression? 3, 2, maybe 1 second? So research shows that within 1/10 of a second, actually, people decide if they can trust you. And it takes 7 seconds to give someone a good impression overall. And so that's why learning to pitch is really an essential life skill that you will use over and over again. And so that's why today I'll be sharing 4 ingredients for a great elevator pitch, which should help you later today for your presentation. So we have problem statement, then you need to have a why, you need to present your solution, and then every good pitch needs a wow factor. So for your problem statement, you're going to clearly present your problem in a compelling way. So it might be you start by asking a question like, don't you hate it when your phone runs out of battery? Everybody can relate to that one, right? Or maybe telling a personal story like, since operating remotely, I spend most of my workday in video conferences with my colleagues. People can relate to personal stories as well, and it's going to automatically draw them in. You can use facts and data, Like in the first quarter of 2020, the cloud infrastructure services market grew by 34%. Or you could try appealing to emotions as well. Electronic devices are more than a communication tool. They're a lifeline to help us stay connected to family and friends. So you'll notice when I started on the previous slide, I used research, I asked a question. So I'm already using some of these techniques. So think about that as you prepare your presentation tonight, how you will make a statement to capture your audience. The second step is to own your why. And I want you to think about this and think about the sentence. What sells your idea is why you do it, not what you do. So this is a model called the Golden Circle that you see here by Simon Sinek, and he's written several books on the topic of leadership, actually. And basically, it's centered around the idea that, again, why is going to really sell your idea, not what. But typically, and we often see this in the outside world as well, we start with the what instead of the why. So I want you to listen to this as an example, and you can consider how compelling you find this or not. I'm going to try to sell you a product. So check out our new power chip. It's smaller, more efficient, more reliable, and affordable. Find out more on ti.com. So do you want to buy my power chip? Well, maybe not. So you'll notice I started with the what. I started by saying I have a new power chip. Then I told you about how. Well, it's smaller, more efficient, more reliable, etc. I didn't really tell you why. And so I'm going to redo my pitch a little, and I want you to tell me now, how do you find it? Do you want to buy my power chip now? So at Texas Instruments, we believe in engineering progress. It's our passion to create a better world by making electronics more affordable through semiconductors. Our innovations make technology smaller, more efficient, more reliable, and affordable. With our new power chip, you'll be limitless. Now that is a more compelling statement. Notice I used very strong language. I used the word believe. I used the word passion. And so again, when you think about your own why in the context of your idea or project for today, think about, again, what is meaningful? What is the real purpose behind it? You could also use Jara's technique of the 5 whys to help you get there as well. So think again about what sells your idea is why you do it, not what you do. Of course, you're going to have to get to the what or how eventually. And this is also going to be what really makes you special or sets you apart a bit from competition. So think about an example. By blank, we will blank. How will you help your audience? How will your product help your audience? So as an example, by helping the world to do more with less power, we ensure increased performance without an increase in battery size or power consumption. So I'm clearly giving you an idea of how my product is going to help you. Use language your audience will understand. So consider the background that your audience is coming from. Will they understand you? Use a specific example if you think that it's going to help you demonstrate your solution more clearly. So again, considering your client, maybe make an example that they can relate to. So for instance, with the current increase in remote work, there is an increasing need for additional cloud space, meaning data centers will require more power. Our power chip enables more power in a smaller space, keeping your operating costs low. So again, I've used a specific example that I believe that my customer will relate to and will appeal to them. And then finally, you gotta think about what is your wow factor? What's gonna really make you stand out as a special or unique product or service? What is your secret sauce? So think about this one unique thing that nobody else can really say. So in my case of my product, our new power chip enables you to double the power density with the same footprint. So this is something I want to leave my audience with. as my wow factor. So putting it all together, you can see all of these 4 elements will leave you with a great elevator pitch. So starting with a problem statement. Since operating remotely, I spend most of my workday in video conferences with my colleagues. In fact, did you know that in the first quarter of 2020, the cloud infrastructure services market grew by 34%? At TI, we believe in engineering progress. It's our passion to create a better world by making electronics more affordable through semiconductors. It's my why statement. Now I have the what and how, getting to the meat of it. Our innovations make technology smaller, more efficient, more reliable, and affordable. And with our new power chip, you'll be limitless. By helping the world to do more with less power, we ensure increased performance without an increase in battery size or consumption. For instance, with the current increase in remote work, there's an increasing need for additional cloud space, meaning data centers require more power. Our power chip enables more power in a smaller space, keeping operating costs low. Ending with the wow factor, our new power chip enables you to double power density with the same footprint. So all in all, I think this new pitch will make you more interested in my new power chip. And I've told you a whole story about it, and you should have a clear understanding of how my product will help you to become, again, more efficient with your power. So also you'll have to think about beyond those 4 key ingredients, what's in it for me? So your audience really matters. So you'll need to consider a few different factors about them. So what is their cultural background? How will that influence their lens? What are their professional or personal experiences that you might need to consider before your pitch? What level are you speaking to? Is it somebody that's a peer? Are they higher up in the organization? How familiar are they with your problem statement? If they're highly technical, maybe you can use different language than you might if maybe they're coming from a completely different field or sector. Think about, would your grandmother understand your pitch as a kind of test? It's usually better to go for something you believe an audience will definitely clearly understand, no matter which background they bring to the table. So this is also a tool from best3minutes.com, which I'll be sharing with you, and Jara and I will be sharing some resources with you after the presentation that you can use as more of a hands-on guide, and this is one of them. It touches on lots of different components that can make a great pitch, also beyond what I presented earlier. So those 4 key ingredients from earlier are probably the heart of your pitch, but you can also add in a few other components, and you can do it in any order. So these are some of them. Jara also touched on from her canvas. So you have, for instance, the pain. What is your customer's pain, and what do they have to gain maybe from your product or service, for instance? You definitely want to include why and why your product. Talk about your product or service. Maybe you have a unique business model you will want to present. You can do a product demo. And Jara also shared some examples of what some possible prototypes could look like. Think about the investment that would be required. What's unique about your product or service? Who's the team behind it all, right? That's really special, and definitely include that. And customer traction. Have you already tested this with customers? Have you gotten first feedback? What have they said? And then finally, think about your call to action. You'll want to end with that probably to your judges or to your investors, whoever it is you're pitching to. What do you need from them? What do you want to end with? So again, these are all different components you can use in a different order, but I'll be sending you a more detailed canvas after the presentation today that you can use to help you build your pitch as well. So here are some basic do's and don'ts as well. And I just want you to keep this in mind for your presentation also later today. You'll want to definitely establish your credibility from the start. Don't succumb to imposter syndrome. Maybe you don't have a background in robotics, but that's also totally fine. It's about having fun, of course. And also you have a right to be here, and you have created a great product or service that I'm sure the judges will be interested in. make sure that you communicate the opportunity and potential. Don't assume that your judges will know the potential of your product or service already. Show them your vision. Be prepared also to answer some questions. You might get some technical or business related questions. Come prepared with those details, but also don't try to answer questions that you definitely don't know the answer to. It's okay to say that you can come back to them. You don't need to feel put on the spot. And if you need to, speak slowly or pause to think about a question before answering. And also pay attention to your body language and the body language of your audience. So make sure, do you want to use your hands? Are you making eye contact? What are some different techniques that you can bring in with your body language? Try to avoid filler words like and Of course, this happens sometimes when we get nervous, but if you can, try to avoid it. And then finally, really key again, I want to emphasize it here because I think it's so important. Share your why. Your passion is secret sauce to your success. Make sure that that comes across to your audience. So since this is an online hackathon, we're 100% virtual. Here are some considerations that I want to leave you with also for some online pitching that you might not consider in an in-person environment. So if you can, and if bandwidth allows for it, turn your camera on. It's going to give, again, just make it more personal and give the audience an idea of who you are, what you're about. It's going to also enable them to share enable you to share nonverbal cues like hands or gestures, or maybe you want to show something. Look at the camera whenever possible to really, again, have that eye contact with your audience. Consider your background. Maybe you want it to be your natural background environment. Maybe you want to have an uploaded background like we're using today. Think about headphones instead of speakers. If you have some headphones available, it can make the sound come across a bit clearer. Of course, not a requirement. And then perform a test run. So as Christian mentioned, we have 5 minutes for the pitch and 5 minutes for Q&A. So make sure that you and your team feel comfortable with your pitch and feel ready to perform later today within the given time frame and the requirements. So with that, that is the end of our presentation, and Jara and I are happy to open it up to any questions that you might have or feedback or comments. Happy to answer your questions now. So we'll wait a little bit due to the delay and see if you have something.
Thank you. We have some comments already. So we have some comments on Jara. Presentation was awesome. I think your presentation is still on YouTube now, and they love it so far.
Thank you very much.
So we have a question. Is it okay to add some humor to the pitch?
So definitely humor can be a great tool to capture and engage your audience. So it's definitely fine to use humor, and I definitely see it as a positive. Of course, you'll need to consider your audience. So just make sure that your humor won't be necessarily insensitive to your audience. So just make sure that you keep that in mind. But of course, that's a great way to, again, capture your audience and get them engaged in your presentation.
We have also another comment. So thank you, Elizabeth and Jara, very inspiring.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so if you have other questions, Jara and I were both in Discord, so you can also leave a note there. And as mentioned, we will be sharing some of the materials after so that you can use the canvases and use the tips and guidance to put together a great pitch for later today. So if there aren't any more questions, we both want to wish you good luck for tonight and wish you all the best. And we're sure that you're going to come up with some great ideas and solutions using design thinking and also nail your pitch later today. So good luck, everybody.
We have another question.
Okay.
Was the delay? Will everybody see the picture or only the judges? I can answer this one. Yeah. So we'll stream the pictures for YouTube, just like we're doing now. Yeah. But I think that's it, right?
Yeah.
So thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.